Hello, Darshan Maharaja here. Today I have Mr. Maxime Bernier, leader of People's Party of Canada, with me to talk about the mass immigration issue. And I'm sure he has very clear views on that. Now, before I begin, a couple of things that I would like to make clear. This is because I have seen a lot of comments to that effect online, especially on Twitter, which is this meeting or this interview is not to be interpreted as my support or endorsement for People's Party of Canada. My interest is to bring different views on important subjects in the public sphere. And even in 2019, when People's Party of Canada was just formed, I had their candidates. I was doing a radio show at that time, and I had their candidates on my show, as I also invited conservative candidates and liberal and NDP candidates. On the conservative side, they showed up, but on the liberal and NDP, they did not reply, but I did make the effort. So that is point number one. This is not to be interpreted as any kind of endorsement or support of any particular party. Number two, this is going to be limited to less than 30 minutes, and I have about 6 questions for Mr. Bernier. So if any of his responses leads to a follow-up question, I'll try and follow up as much as I can, but there is a time limitation. And secondly, I'm not a very quick thinker. My mental capacity is very modest. So it may not occur to me right away. It happens every day when I have dealt with something and then I realize much later that, oh, I should have done that or I should have asked that. So on Twitter, there is room because you can go back to that post and then, follow up on the conversation. But in this interview, not so much. So pardon me for that. And I'm also trying to be respectful of everybody's time. Mr. Bernier, of course, has been gracious enough to offer his time. And I value your time as well as the viewer. So with that in the background, let's get started. Mr. Bernier, this mass immigration issue has built up over the past few months. I remember I attended your first ever public meeting after forming People's Party of Canada. It was in Malton. And I was there as media. As I said, I was doing a radio show at the time. And you spoke about immigration at length, which even at that time, when the immigration itself was at 350,000 level, you said it was too high. And you wanted to reduce it drastically. Now, since then, apart from the increase in immigration itself from 350K to 500K, we have seen the explosion in temporary residency visas or non-permanent residency visas. So the total used to be around 500,000, including permanent and non-permanent at the time. Now it is easily more than twice that, north of 1 million. Now these numbers and their impacts on housing, healthcare, and every other form of infrastructure and job availability has been well discussed. But what I would like to know from you is where do you see a fault in the policy that allows for this intake, and how would you remedy it?
Yes, first, I must say that I'm very pleased to be with you today. And I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity to explain our point of view to your viewers and your auditor. So, so thank you very much. So that being said, about immigration, you're right by saying, in 2019, at our first election, that was our position to have a maximum of 150,000 permanent residents. And we wanted to have fewer people. We wanted also at the same time to have an interview with each one of them. And we wanted to know if they share our Canadian values, equality before the law, equality between men and women, and so our Charter of Rights and our values. And today it's the same policy, but you're right by saying, the number of permanent residents is almost double. This year it will be 500,000 permanent residents. And you add to that the international students and also the temporary foreign workers, and the number of newcomers in our country last year was 1.2 million people. So when you are a country of about 40 million people, that is for us mass immigration. And if I may explain a little bit that more, mass immigration is when you have so many people that you cannot take care of them. Actually, a lot of them cannot, have a job. Some of them are living in tents near our big cities in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. And every one of them will need a roof. And that's why we have a housing crisis right now. So if you compare the growth of our population from last year to this year, it's about 3.2%, the growth of our population. And if you look at the average growth of population of Western countries, OECD countries, the average last year was 0.6%. So for us, it was 3.2%. So that is mass immigration, because we cannot integrate these people in our culture. It's too there's too many people, and the impact on housing. Actually, I like to use the numbers that Pierre Poilievre used about the new houses that we are building in this country. Actually, last year we built about 250,000 new houses. But if we compare that with 50 years ago, 50 years ago, that was about 240,000. But at that time, we had a population of around 18 million people. Now it's about 40 million people, and we are building the same amount of new houses. So to be able to just be able to answer the demand for housing, we will have to build 700,000 new homes every year. That number is coming from the National Bank and the Canadian Mortgage Corporation. So we cannot build so many houses to solve that problem. So that's why, we need to stop mass immigration. And that is the position of the People's Party of Canada. We need to end the mass immigration, and we need to have a moratorium on permanent residence, maybe for 1 year or 2 years, because that is affecting everybody. And like you said, it is affecting also our healthcare delivery here in our country. A lot of people, a lot of Canadians don't have family doctor, and the waiting time for surgeries are very long in Canada. So our system is not functioning for Canadians, and you had all these newcomers, and we want them to be able to go to an hospital if they're sick, but it is very difficult right now. So let's end mass immigration. Let's have a moratorium on permanent residence, and that is the solution. The solution is not to try to build more houses. It won't be impossible to do that. It will take years. So the solution that is under the control of the federal government is to end mass immigration. So that is the policy of the People's Party of Canada. And I must say that we are the only national political party that is speaking about that.
Thank you, Mr. Bernier. But my question is still about the flaw in the policy. Because if you put a temporary moratorium, then at some point in the future, the same flaw will resurface. We need to put a policy that prevents such mistakes from happening. So, how would you envisage that any future policy of immigration will also not suffer from the same weaknesses?
Yeah, actually, that's why for us, what we are promoting it's the same kind of immigration legislation or immigration policy that we had a couple of years ago. That's why also about 40% of immigrants in Canada agree with our position on immigration, because when they came here at that time, they had to speak English or French. And yes, they had to do an interview. And it was very difficult for them to come to Canada. And it was a privilege to be a Canadian. And they're very happy to be in this country. And they are integrated in our society. So what we want to do, we want to do what we did, 15, 20 years ago on immigration, being sure that we'll have people that share our values, will come here for the right reason. And as you may know, at that time, reunification of family, that was not the same meaning of today. Today, under the immigration law or regulations, when a politician is speaking about reunification of family, it's the big family, the brothers, the sister, uncle, and grandmom, granddad. So a reunification of family under the immigration legislation must be the immediate family, mom, dad, and their kids. And that must be that, because, we want to be sure that we will be able to, like I said, take care of them, and we want to be sure that they will be able to have a job. So let's go back to the definition of reunification of family that we had a couple of years ago. So that's the policy also of the People's Party of Canada. And on immigration also, there's here in Canada, if you are a tourist and you decided to come to Canada just to visit our country, and you're a woman and you're pregnant and you have your baby here in Canada, your baby will have the Canadian citizenship. So I believe that we must abolish that. If you come here, and we have a lot of pregnant women that are coming here as tourists and deliver their baby here in Canada, just to be sure that for their baby to be a Canadian citizens. We will abolish that. We want people who will come here and share our values and participate in our society.
Thank you for that answer. Now, you spoke about integration, and I see it as a two-way street. Just as we expect immigrants, or we hope that immigrants integrate into Canadian society, the Canadian workplace needs to integrate them according to their education and other credentials. Now, that is something where I've been in Canada for 20 years, and I have seen the same situation, difficult situation. I've undergone that also, where immigrants are granted permanent residency visa based on their education and experience, but the Canadian marketplace does not recognize them. So then, there is a mismatch. Not to speak too much about it because this is a big subject, but how would you go about addressing this particular weakness in our immigration system?
Yes, you're right to say that we want first people that will come here, and we want them to have a job. For that, we need to recognize their talents, and it's very complicated in Canada. Actually, if you are a Canadian-born nurse working in Montreal, you cannot work as a nurse in BC. So we need to work with provinces to be sure that if you're a doctor in BC, you'll be able to work as a doctor in Quebec. And that is not happening. Same thing for immigrants. When they are coming here and they have a diploma, sometimes it takes years for them to be able to work in their field where they did their study, or where they were working, where they were in their country of origin. So we need to be able we need more doctors, for example. So we need to be able to approve their diploma, and that's not happening as fast as we wish. So that's why we need to have a reform there for sure.
But you would have to work with the provinces, because the regulation is in provincial jurisdiction, and that is one thing that I have seen, the disjointed relationship that the federal government tends to have with various provinces. I mean, I've been around 20 years, and it has been a feature of our politics. But when it starts impacting millions of people, then why do you think there is no impetus to come on the same page?
Yeah, we must give an incentive to provinces to harmonize their professional legislations, and the best incentive can be, more money. The federal government can say, for a province, if you are, working to harmonize professional regulations, we will be generous and give you, I don't know, an amount of money. So that can be something. Just try to find the best incentive for provinces to work together with the federal government to be sure that we'll have a solution to that challenge that we have for a long time.
True. Now, the effect of the social effect of this mass immigration, because right now, until now, we have spoken about the housing and healthcare and everything else. But in terms of social unity, I am seeing a lot of stress being generated because we are letting too many people in. Uh, and it also originates from some of the economic factors as well. For example, inability to buy an affordable rental, or inability to land a job, especially when we are in summer like this, and then people find that their teenage kid cannot get a summer job to save up for college. Then it begins to build resentment for the reasons, but these are only the immediate reasons. The root reason is something else. So I think the current social priority is to address this stress as well. I'm seeing until now, I think it was a little bit difficult to be very openly anti-immigrant. And I have maintained that even when someone says that, we are someone is being anti-immigrant, I used to say that opposing the immigration policy is not the same thing as being anti-immigrant. But now I'm seeing a lot of people being very vocal, and sometimes in very extreme ways. Like just last Friday, I was told by someone that with my accent, I can never be a Canadian. So, and this is a person with whom I have always had very constructive discussions on Twitter, going back several years, 3, 4 years, I think. And even after that comment, we have had constructive discussions. But this is one point on which we cannot meet halfway, between the two positions. There are even people who say that all immigrants from India will be deported no matter when they came to Canada. They may have been born here. This is a kind of extreme uh, viewpoint. And on one hand, I want to dismiss it as fringe, but on the other hand, I'm seeing it growing. So I think, in the political arena, we have to at least have a clear idea of how we are going to deal with this. So how would you deal with it?
Yeah, you're right about that. More and more people, because of the mass immigration, they're saying enough is enough. But that being said, not only because of the policy of mass immigration here in Canada, add to that the Multiculturalism Act. It's a legislation in our country where we are saying to people, you can come to our country, you can come to our country and keep your values, you don't integrate to our society. And actually, the federal government is promoting that by, I'll give you an example, the new Chinese year. So, if you want to apply, you'll have a subsidies to celebrate the new Chinese year from money that will come from the federal government. I don't have anything against that, but that must not be the role of the government to promote that. We must promote what unites us. We must promote our identity, our culture, our history, and we are not doing that. So that's why the People's Party of Canada is ready to repeal the Multiculturalism Act and to promote our values. And that's why also it would be important to have an interview with each one of the new Canadians. That's part. What about deportation? That when you are coming here under, for example, an international student's permit, usually after we are welcoming here to study here, and after that you go back to your country of origin and you have maybe a very good education, and that's good for your society in your country of origin. So we didn't have any problem with that in the past. Now we have people who are coming here on the international student permit, and they want to stay after that in Canada. So the position of the People's Party is you must leave the country after that. And if you're an illegal in our country, you must be deported. We cannot give you a gift or a reward because you are not respecting our legislation when you came here under a temporary, foreign worker visa, and you're staying here, and at the end of your visa, that our legislation must be respected. And for us, I'm not speaking about deporting everybody, only the illegals that are in our country and are not respecting the legislations. So we need to. That's why people are a little bit more and more uh, not happy with traditional establishment politicians because they don't want to speak about that. They're afraid to be called a racist. But no, it is not. It's just a question to have a better society. And that's a challenge, immigration, that is happening also in other Western countries, in US, in Europe, in France, in UK, in Germany. So multiculturalism was a failure, and we understand that. I don't want I want immigrants to come here, but when they are coming here, they are transforming our society slowly. They are bringing a new flavor to our society. I'm okay with that. What I don't want is our immigrants to live in a ghetto and not speaking English or French, and don't want to be part of our society. They must be part of our society. And that's why by having fewer immigrants, we'll be able to take care of them, and they will be able to have a job and participate fully in our society.
Yeah, you hit on a very important point that I have been highlighting for many months now. What I say is that our version of multiculturalism has become multipoliticalism, because when immigrants come to Canada, they don't leave the political ecosystem of the country of their origin, and that is fine. They have an emotional bond to it, they grew up with it, so it is difficult to get rid of it, and it would be unfair to ask them to get rid of it. But when they bring it out in the public sphere, and then they find support from the political class, that is where I think Canadian priorities get put on a back burner, and the foreign countries politics becomes the focus. So how would you deal with this? Because it's a societal thing, not necessarily a political thing.
Yes, you're right. If you're not participating in our society, if you don't integrate into the Canadian society, you are living in a ghetto. And now we can see that they're bringing here in Canada the conflicts in their country of origin. We don't want that. So the way to be sure that it won't happen, it's to have that interview with them when they will come, and it's also to have fewer immigrants, because we will be able to integrate them. But when you have 1.2 million newcomers a year, that is the population of Saskatchewan. So we cannot integrate them, and that's not helping our Canadian society. So the way to do that is to first send a strong message by repealing the Multiculturalism Act. And it's also sending a strong message by also giving subsidies to different groups who are ready to promote Canadian values, culture, and history. And by doing interview with each one of the applicants who want to be a permanent resident here in our country. So if you put all that together, that will help to limit that, and I believe will help also these immigrants to be part in our society. But right now, it's a huge problem, and what is happening is establishment, mainstream politicians from other political parties are pandering to these ethnic communities, and because they want to have votes and they want to win some ridings. We are not doing that at the People's Party. We believe that if you as an immigrant decided to come to Canada, for me, you're not a Hindu Canadian or a Chinese Canadian. You are a Canadian. And I won't pander to these ethnic communities. I'm seeing you as a Canadian. So that's important. But we are the only party that is not pandering to different ethnic communities. We want them to be with us and build this country based on our values.
Thank you, Mr. Bernier. These are all the questions I had for you. And thank you for offering to talk with me. And any final message that you would like to give to my viewers?
But first, I must say thank you. I'm very pleased that I had that opportunity to have that discussion with you. For me, that's always important to be able to express our point of view on different policies. But if your viewers want to know more about the People's Party of Canada, they can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. They can click on platform and read our policy on immigration, and the policy also on ending the Multiculturalism Act. It's only 3 pages. They can read it, and we are always fighting for the same ideas. So that policy and all these policies on our website will be the same at the next election. And that's the way we are doing politics. We have strong ideas, we believe in that, and we are speaking about it with passion and conviction, hoping that more and more people would understand. And they can also follow me on the social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, and different social media. So thank you again, and have a nice day.
You too, Mr. Bernier. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
That's it with Mr. Bernier today. And I hope I'll see your responses in the comments. Until we meet again, goodbye and be well.